Currently, something is going on that affects everybody in the chess world. Chess pieces are being renamed. And not only this, but chess notation as we know it is getting completely changed. Well, why? Basically, the FIDE organization, the International Chess Federation or World Chess Federation, thinks that the current system of notation and the names of the pieces are not perfect. And by changing it, they're going to be able to improve everybody's experience. They wrote this very, very long article / rule / explanation about why they made these changes. And most people's reaction to this very, very, very long article was,
I literally don't care. I literally don't care. I literally don't care.
Most people couldn't care less about the efficiency of a notation system and the piece names. They just don't care about it. However, FIDE is very much interested in the efficiency of a system, and therefore are going to make some changes. FIDE has been experimenting with different types of chess notation systems for multiple years now, since 2018. Magnus Carlsen was involved in some of the tests along with other top grandmasters. All of them were told, shh, don't tell anybody about this until we know for sure if we're going to move ahead and actually go into making this official. FIDE has asked the US Chess Federation to accept these. However, states like Alabama, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, that little state, Iowa, and Louisiana have already rejected it. More states are expected to follow very, very soon as we get closer to April.
A few moments later.
Florida has also rejected this, Oklahoma has rejected this, Ohio has rejected this, and Louisiana really doesn't like this and has stated that multiple times more afterward. You're probably confused by now, but don't worry, we'll go over some of FIDE's reasonings for changing the actual chess notation and chess piece names, and we will also go over how it looks like in a game. What has FIDE changed about the bishop? FIDE has decided not to change the bishop's name and is only changing the notation. What they've decided to do is, normally in chess notation, the bishop is a capital B. So if the bishop is going to the e4 square, you would just write bishop to e4. So b e4. However, in this new chess notation, it's a lowercase b, which wasn't previously allowed. It had to be uppercase. What this does is, in FIDE's mind, in rapid games where they still have to notate their games, chess players have to write down each move, it's going to take them less time to write the moves and more time for them to play the chess games. What has FIDE changed about the pawns? Well, basically, normally when you're notating a pawn, you don't have to write anything to start out with. If the pawn is going to, say again, the e4 square, you would simply write e and then 4, e4, and you don't need to have anything before it, unlike all the other pieces. FIDE wants to have it more uniform, so what they've done in this new chess notation is written pawn, cut down the n, and now we have the base of paw. And basically what they're doing here is trying to make it more uniform, more understandable for the new players. In an attempt to make everything more uniform, they got rid of letters altogether on the chessboard and now just have 1 through 8 on both the top and bottom. Imagine you were trying to move a pawn to d7 on the chessboard. What you would do is, firstly, you have to remove the p because it just makes it easier to write. And you put 4 at the start because going over 1, 2, 3, 4, there we go. We have 4 and then we count how many rows up we're going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be where d7 used to be. So now instead we have 4 7, and that would be the d7 square, and this is pawn to d7 or 4 7. We're now getting to the major changes. Let's take knight. Now in old chess notation, knight had to be the letter not K, it had to be the letter N. Because why? Well, king would also start with the letter K, so in notation it would be confusing if they're both K. That doesn't work. So knight was forced to take the letter N, and king got K. However, in our new amazing notation system given to us by FIDE, what we have instead here is basically knight ends up becoming a shorter word. We create the word just night, like nighttime. Therefore, it would make more sense if the letter was N. However, FIDE had a smarter idea where they decided to put a capital T at the end of night. So it's now pronounced night with like a pronunciation at the T at the end. Now the notation for this new chess term, knight, is just a T. And for the king, what they just decided to do is remove the N and G, making you just key. So basically just key is you're just going to, instead of writing K, you'd write KI. FIDE did not want to change the queen chess piece name, but instead what they did is just change the chess notation for the queen. So obviously you might be asking, well, I like the letter Q and the sound of it, and FIDE did too. So instead of devastatingly changing it to something else, they just kept the word queen and changed the notation to QU. And say in old notation, the queen was going to B7. Again, you would go number 2 to start with, because 2 would be where B used to be. And then if you're going all the way up 7 squares, you would just put 2Q7. The rook is obviously the best chess piece ever, and therefore FIDE obviously needed to very carefully decide what to do with their new chess notation. Thankfully, they decided not to change the actual name of the rook, although I would have suggested chariot. They instead decided to just keep the name of rook, and their notation-wise, they decided to put 2 O's for the 2 O's in the rook in between the R and the K. Now, I like this quite a bit, and basically, people didn't like this in the FIDE organization. They were like, that just looks like castling. So they decided they also needed to change castling. Now, in order to castle in chess, the notation for castling is simply 3 W's for the long castle and 2 W's for the short castle. This is going to encourage people not to use the O's, and although it's still going to be an alternative option as long as they use the dashes in between the O's. We're now going to go over a quick game to see if you can understand the new chess notation when I explain a game using it. If you can understand it, then congratulations, you understand how it works. Alright, so this chess game starts in old notation with the move e4, but we're in new notation, so we have to go 5 squares over to the right, 4 squares up. That means, and since it's a pawn move, we have 5 off 4. Great. What does black play? Black plays e5 in old notation, which in new notation is 5 off 5. Okay, what should white play? Well, white plays bishop to c4. And while that may seem like it's old notation, bishops, according to FIDE, are allowed to ignore the new setup of rules, and instead, as long as they're lowercase, are able to still be in new chess notation. In old notation, black has just played knight to f6, but in new notation, black has just played 6 knight 6, which is obviously better. Now, white plays queen to f3 in old notation, in new notation playing 6q3. In old notation, we have knight takes e4, and in new notation, captured is called a cat, so we have 5 knight cat 4. In old notation, we have queen takes f7 checkmate, but in new notation, any sort of checkmate is just called checkmate, and you don't need to write anything else down, regardless of where it occurred. There's a link in the description with all the information you need about the new chess notation. It's going to go over the article, everything. Just click on that link and you'll be good if you have any more questions. Other than that, thanks for watching and please subscribe.